All right, the trade deadline came and went, and here we are to talk about what the Red Sox ended up doing at the trade deadline. Dan Roche joining me, and Dan, the Sox ended up picking up Steven Matz and Dustin May. So one bullpen arm and one starter. What was your reaction when the trade deadline passed about what the Red Sox got?
Well, I think you have to be frustrated and disappointed, right? If you're a Red Sox fan, because you're hoping for a bigger name, you're hoping for a number two starter or a little bit more of a quality starter. Should I say nothing against Dustin May and everything that he can bring to the table? We saw him just this past Sunday at Fenway. So he's a serviceable major league pitcher, but he's probably a 4 or 5 guy that you throw into that rotation. He's not a number 2 guy, which I think Red Sox fans were hoping for, and a guy like Joe Ryan or Sandy Alcantara from the Marlins. So it's kind of, you sit here and you say, all right. And then, I think you also have to look at it in another way, Joe, and say, what was the cost, right? At this time of year, teams can hold a ransom note for what you're trying to do and what you're trying to accomplish and whatever they feel is best for their organization. And it sounds like there was too much of an asking price for the guys that, the Red Sox really, really wanted. And the Red Sox felt like they didn't want to match that.
Dan, what concerns me is not only the underwhelming amount of players or the specific type of players that the Sox got here at the trade deadline, because Steven Matz, he's had a good season. Dustin May has had a lot of potential, but this year he's got an ERA over 4.5. And one thing to note, too, is he's thrown more innings in the majors this year than he has in any of his previous seasons. And he hasn't thrown over 100 innings since 2019 prior to this year. So we'll see in terms of where in the innings total that he's at, if there will be a limit down the line. But on top of that, Dan, I think the big concern from the Sox perspective is how the teams around them in the wild card standings got significantly better. The Rangers, who are trailing them right now in the wild card standings, they got Merrill Kelly. The Mariners got the 2 big bats that everybody was hoping to get in Gino Suarez and also Josh Naylor. And then the Yankees, Ryan McMahon, he's not a big bat necessarily, but they had gotten such little third base production this year that you bring him in, and even if he replicates what he did in Colorado, that's better than what they'd been getting, and he also is a pretty good defender. On top of that, they got some really good arms in the bullpen as well. And it made me think of Alex Cora and something that he's said, recently about when he was asked why this team in the last couple years coming out of the trade deadline has not performed well. And he has said it's the teams around them that have just gotten better at the trade deadline. And I wonder if by the end of the season we're going to be saying it was at this point in the year where the Sox started to fall back in the pack. I still think this is a good team. I think it's a playoff team too, Dan, but you just have to look at what else is around them right now. And you look at these teams and say, wow, they really did add, and they added significant pieces here.
Yeah, I think it goes back to what you were saying with Alex Cora and what this Red Sox team has done in the past. It's been the last several years where they've looked around and seen other teams upgrade significantly in some ways, and the Red Sox didn't really do much. So it was kind of the same thing happened again this year, right? So I think if you're in that clubhouse, there's 2 approaches. Here's what I'm doing. If I'm Craig Breslow, and I would even like to see it with John Henry, if I'm Craig Breslow and I am Alex Cora, I walk in there and I bring John Henry in too and say, listen, guys, we value you. We value this group right here. And, Jarren Duran is was rumored to be out there, teams wanting him desperately, they would make a trade work for him. Will Abreu, what have you. We believe in you guys in this group. We don't want to give up our franchise type of players. So I would approach it that way if I'm the Red Sox, because they need to say something to this group to keep them motivated. And the question is, over 162 games, the best teams win, right? That's kind of how it is. That's the beauty of baseball. You wonder if they have enough weapons to get it done. So I would have liked to have seen even more starting pitching added, from the sense of I would have taken a chance on some of the lesser guys that went, not necessarily the number 2 starters, but a Merrill Kelly, who has postseason experience, even a Shane Bieber, who, is a risk, but could be a reward. If you could package a certain amount of prospects, that to me would be the one big thing. And I think you also take out of this is, Craig Breslow said that pretty much everybody in the minor league system was on the table. Do other teams value the Red Sox prospects as much as the Red Sox do? So you kind of get that sense too, where somewhere there's a gap here where the Red Sox can't close the deal with just their minor league prospects. That's what I took out of this trade deadline. And where that comes from, I don't know. I don't know if it's the Red Sox not wanting to part with the proper prospects when it comes to getting those lesser pitchers or even their greater pitchers. I don't know where that comes from, but it's somewhere there's a gap between the Red Sox closing a deal and other teams wanting certain prospects because they were all traded. Kelly and Shane Bieber and others were all traded at this trade deadline, and the Red Sox didn't get an upgrade as far as they're concerned.
Dan, what did you make of Craig Breslow's comments after the trade deadline? He talked about, in part, what you're talking about right now in terms of the minor league players and saying it wasn't enough to get deals done from his perspective. And I know this team was trying to go after Joe Ryan very aggressively, and ultimately the Twins didn't want to pull the trigger on him. And you think about, God, that would be an incredible 1-2 punch of Crochet and Ryan. They'll likely explore it in the offseason. But what did you make of what he said after the fact? Because I think for these CBOs, these GMs, whatever you want to call them, it's hard to win the press conference when the fan base is upset at what just happened. We saw this with Chaim Bloom before him. What did you think of what he said after the fact when it was all said and done?
Well, I took it he seemed disappointed to me. It seemed like Breslow thought that they were going to get a deal done and could get a deal done. Now, whether that's on Breslow, whether that's on the organization, whether it's on others in the front office, whether it's on ownership, somewhere in there, they weren't able to get a deal done, Joe. So, they obviously weren't going to give up Duran. So we know that. So that's kind of take him out of the equation. Did they have enough package-wise elsewhere to get it done? Whether it be a Christian Campbell, whether it be Peyton Tolley, those guys that, valued prospects within this Red Sox organization, and Arias or those kind of guys. I don't know. Somewhere, somehow, if Craig Breslow wanted to get a deal done, he could have gotten a deal done and maybe given up a little bit more pain than he wanted to with prospects, right? Because after a while, you got to say, okay, these are our top prospects, but we got to get something out of this. So, they went after Joe Ryan. They went after Sandy Alcantara. But when you can't get the other team to say, okay, that's the problem. Other teams, and again, the starting pitching market didn't, bear fruit. That's the other thing, too. It's not like the Red Sox were the only group here trying to go for maybe Joe Ryan, trying to go for Sandy Alcantara, trying to go for Dylan Cease. Nobody got it done, right? So you sit there and say, well, if other teams weren't getting it, they didn't want to trade him. So now you got to sit there and say, okay, it didn't get done. This is what we have. They still have a great future with every team, every player that we've watched this season. It's been fun. Now you got to do it in the offseason, right? You got to find another way to pull off a Crochet trade, sign another big-time free agent pitcher, or acquire one and sign it to a long-term deal. That's what's got to happen in the offseason because they just weren't able to accomplish this. And, you can sit here and whine and moan and everything else, and I agree with Red Sox fans. I'd be disappointed and ticked off too. But, they didn't trade guys that, they didn't trade Meyer. They didn't trade Duran. They didn't trade guys that Red Sox fans want to see stay here in Boston. So you kind of had that, damned if you don't thing if you're Craig Breslow and the Red Sox. So they just got to be patient. I hate to say it, but again, you got to be patient because you're not getting any younger, Joe. So
more grays pass by the day, Dan. I'm gonna be looking like you here. I think
you're gonna be 22 before you know it.
But I think your last point, right? Now it's come and gone. Again, I think this is a good team. I tweeted this out after they won that last game against the Twins. Now they're 30-17 over their last 47 games. In the Roman Anthony era, they're 27-16. And listen, in the month of July, even more specifically, they're 17-7. That 10-game winning streak went a long way into allowing everybody, I think, to dream big about what the Sox could do here at the trade deadline. But it's also not a perfect team. And again, I think what the concern now becomes is these other teams around the Sox have gotten better. And the hope was you were also going to get better. And the Joe Ryan part of this, Dan, I don't know if you saw the tweet from MLB on Fox where they initially tweeted out that the Sox got him, and you're thinking, this was the move of the deadline. They were going for the big punch, and they didn't end up getting it.
And why does that only happen to the Red Sox, Joe? You know what I mean?
That's a great question. It's a great question.
Nobody else tweeted that so-and-so was going to the Yankees or so-and-so was going to the St. Louis. Come on.
And Yahoo was also, they were also They also did the same thing too. So you wonder, and I'm curious in terms of the reporting that comes out of this, is how fixated were they on getting Joe Ryan? Because these other pieces were sort of passing them by as we had heard the report that they were still continuing to aggressively go after him. And when the Merrill Kelly tweet came across, and I was watching both ESPN and the Nesson coverage, that one was the gut punch because it's like, okay, the rental market really wasn't materializing from a starting pitcher standpoint till the very end, and that was the thing that Craig Breslow had very publicly stated that we want a playoff starter. And I think what the problem is with Dustin May, Dan, is he better than Buehler? I mean, Buehler's had a tough season, but I don't know if you would necessarily say he would slot ahead of Buehler. I feel great about Crochet. I feel good about Bayo. I feel good about Giolito to this point. But you probably want, four starters.
Right. Who's going to be your fourth starter?
Exactly.
If you were to pick one today, I think every fan out there, and you and I would say Walker Buehler, right? Based on his last year, right?
Yeah.
Based on his postseason performance last year. They would say that. So you did not get an upgrade. If you acquired a Joe Ryan or a Sandy Alcantara, more so a Ryan, because Alcantara, is coming back from the, his surgery, what have you, still, so it's taking him time. But if you acquired a guy like that, if you acquired even a guy like Bieber, like you would take a risk and say, well, maybe he could be, Bieber could be that fourth guy or whatever. Maybe Merrill Kelly would easily slot into that fourth spot because he's got postseason experience. Joe Ryan would be your number two behind Crochet, and you'd be on your way. But yeah, that's the problem you had. So with that said, Joe, I would have gone harder, and maybe timing was everything, like you said, with the Joe Ryan push or the Alcantara push or what have you. Zach Littell, I would have Michael Soroka, Steven, we saw Matz go, Merrill Kelly, those kind of guys, Bieber. I would have gone for two of those guys and try to shove them in, and then you've got some depth, because now you don't have any depth with, everything that's gone on. Fitz hasn't pitched well, and Dobbins is done. So, you know what I mean? Like, they're stuck. So I would have maybe gone that other route, but maybe they didn't have time, right? So we weren't in that room, so maybe they just ran out of time.
And we also don't know who's starting today, just as we're recording this right now, Friday morning. Craig
Joe the optimist.
About this. Exactly. Well, I'm not sure. There are a couple options clearly on the table for this team. But we haven't even gotten into the division leaders, too, around the American League. I mean, we talked a little bit about the Blue Jays, them getting Shane Bieber. But they also had Sir Anthony Dominguez. They got Ty France, who can hit left-handed pitching, too. So it's a tough landscape coming out of this. I completely understand why Sox fans are underwhelmed and frustrated by what happened. The hope is that this group, which has been playing some really good baseball, just can continue to do what they've been doing, Dan, because Roman Anthony has changed so much about this group. He's already been fantastic. His on-base percentage is over 400 already as a big league player, which is ridiculous. And the rest of the team seems to be really gelling together, whether it's the celebrations, the plane ride thing that they were joking about the other day, or the Wally head that they've been using all year. It's a fun team, and the hope is that this doesn't sink them.
Well, and again, right, you have to look at that in two ways, right? If they falter, they're going to catch a ton of grief that they didn't. But at the end of the day, when the season ends and you start to sit there and say, what do we have? They have a lot of what other teams would want, right? They have a franchise player. We've talked about this in Roman Anthony. He continues to show that he's going to be a franchise player. There's a reason why he was the number one prospect in baseball. And why talent evaluators like drool over him, it's because you just have to watch him. Now he's in the top spot, and he's on his way. You've got Duran in that third spot. You mentioned the outfield. That's figured itself out. You've got Rafaela now to play second base or wherever you need to. What scares you is Marcelo Meyer, right? And, does he need surgery? They're going to get a second opinion on that, so you worry about that. And long-term, can he stay healthy for a season? That's the other problem we've talked about with Meyer. Now, Christian Campbell seems to be writing himself down at AAA, so you're going to be able to throw him into the mix, or you can make him part of a trade if you need to in the offseason to acquire a starting pitcher. So I think they have a lot of flexibility. They have a lot of good things. We've seen Crochet blossom into a Cy Young type of performer. So everything has gone well that route. So there's a lot of great things out there still, Joe. I think for Red Sox fans to be pleased about. It's just, again, patience is a hard thing when you're, continually saying to your fan base, we're getting there, we're going to be there, trust us, we're going to go for it, we're going to be really good. So for me, you know what I mean? It's just like I think you just kind of sit there and I take the big picture, and I think they're going to be okay. So for the rest of the season, will they be disappointing? We'll see. But, part of me is like, well, a lot of Red Sox fans weren't watching, until they got hot and still they won 10 games. So, just go back and be patient and hang in there and we'll see what happens. So, but no one wants to hear that this morning.
No, nobody does.
So I'm sorry.
But listen, there's that part of you, Dan. That's that part inside of you. That's that forever positive guy. That's why we love you. But we'll see how it all shakes out coming out of here. Dan, appreciate the time as always. Appreciate you waking up early on this Friday morning. I know you'll be in Foxborough, but also appreciate you talking baseball with me.
Oh, it's a pleasure, Joe.